Let's get into some position battles to watch out for and to keep an eye on during spring training. First and foremost, we have the starting pitcher, or just the starting rotation in general. Really, the only guy who has a guaranteed spot right now, according to Brandon Hyde, is John Means. The staff have been saying Kremer and Aiken still have to work their way for their rotation spots this spring. I don't think that's entirely true. If they're not in your starting rotation, they're I don't know what you're doing if Kremer and Aiken aren't in the starting rotation come opening day. Maybe if they struggle, maybe you have to send them back down, but they should definitely be on the starting rotation. They've proved there's no evidence to say they aren't ready for this. They've proved themselves perfectly last season in some great starts. I think they each only had one rough start that kind of boosted their stats a little bit. If you take out those two starts, they had really, really good stats in the starting role last season for the Orioles. So hopefully we'll see that continue in the regular season. But if you're assuming Aiken and Kremer are in the starting rotation, that leaves two spots for a ton of guys. We got Felix Hernandez, Wade LeBlanc, Matt Harvey, Jorge Lopez, who I could see more in a bullpen spot. We've also got Bruce Zimmerman, who made his major league debut at the end of last season. A little bit rougher than Aiken and Kremer, could probably start at AAA, get a little bit more work in before he comes back up. But he's another guy who could have a really good spring, and if he's kind of like Jahmai Jones that could possibly use some work in AAA. But if he plays good enough in spring and shows he's ready, he could definitely end up on that opening day roster. We've also got Michael Baldwin, who they've pretty much said he's not starting the season in Baltimore. Will probably start at AAA. That being said, he's still in the battle. You never know. Maybe we'll see him. And then we've also got our two Rule 5 picks as well. So that's about 2 to 4 spots open if you believe Aiken and Kremer's spots aren't guaranteed. You got about 8 guys fighting for possibly 2 spots. Or if you think the other spots are open as well, you got 10 guys fighting for 4 spots. So a lot of availability for guys to go out and earn their way into the opening day rotation. We've also got a battle for second base and third base. The battle for second base isn't really a battle. It's only going to be there for if Sanchez slides somewhere else or if there's an injury at some point. Because Yolmer Sanchez is a lock for the opening day roster in the starting lineup. Pretty much guaranteed, in my opinion. However, if he maybe slides to third base or if he gets hurt or something, that opens up, then that makes it wide open. But at third base, it's already pretty much wide open as Rio Ruiz's spot is not guaranteed whatsoever. After a very strong start to last season, he kind of tailed off and didn't really look the same for the second half. I'd love to see him rebound. When he was on a roll in that first half of the season, he was really fun to watch, and he's probably the best defender out of this group that I've seen. That being said, unless he gets his bat going, that spot's open for the taking, which Pat Valaika, Ramon Urias, and Richie Martin could all earn their way on there. There's some other guys as well who could play third base, but I just don't see as likely. I see them starting in the minors. So yeah, we'll see who wins second base and third base. It's probably going to be Rio Ruiz and Pat Valaika splitting time at third and Yolmer at second. But we'll see what happens. Okay, now let's move on to the outfield, and I do not envy Brandon Hyde's position on this. There is a lot, and I mean a lot of competition in this outfield coming up. You got Ryan Mountcastle. Well, you got your starting lineup in the outfield from last season with Ryan Mountcastle in left, Austin Hayes in center field, and Anthony Santander in right. But you've also got guys like DJ Stewart and Cedric Mullins who played really well last season, especially in the second half with DJ Stewart having that streak of like 8 home runs in like a week. But if Cedric Mullins and DJ Stewart have a really good spring training, Brandon Hyde's job is going to get a lot harder because you got to fit all 5 of those guys in some playing time in some shape or form. Mountcastle could possibly move to the DH and rotate with Trey Mancini at first base and DH. But that's the only guy you can really move. Otherwise, you got you got Santander, Mullins, and Hayes, and even Stewart there competing for a spot. I could see Cedric Mullins maybe starting in center with Austin Hayes in left, Santander in right, and then Mountcastle at DH. DJ Stewart is probably the odd man out here, just because he hasn't been as consistent as the others with what to expect. When he's hitting really well, he is hard to stop, as we saw last season. What makes this even more difficult is that you got Yasniel Diaz coming up this year as well. So you're going to have to make room for him. As unfortunate as it is to say, if DJ Stewart or Anthony Santander have a really good first half, I'd expect them to be traded at the deadline, because you got to make room for some of these guys, just because the guys you have coming up in Yasniel Diaz and Heston Kjerstad and some others, their ceiling is going to be a lot higher than some of the guy than an Anthony Santander or DJ Stewart from what I've seen. I'd love for them to prove me wrong. Santander hasn't really had the opportunity to put up numbers a whole season yet. He had injury troubles in 2019, and then 2020, it wasn't a full season to begin with, and he missed the second half of that season. I'm just curious to see how it all plays out. I don't know really what to expect. The only lock I think is Mountcastle. Santander is a lock to at least start the season. He might be traded, he might not. It really just depends on how he does. If he proves that he can hit really well and be that solid middle of the lineup guy for the future, then you obviously keep him. But if he puts up the stats he did last year, where they're good but not like what you want for the future of your team at that position, then I could see him being traded at the deadline and Diaz taking his spot. What I see happening as of right now is Mountcastle in left, Hayes in center, Santander in right, DJ Stewart as your DH, and then Cedric Mullins rotating in as a fourth outfielder, which I think Mullins is probably the safest bet to be on the roster just because of the amount of things he can do. He's a great fielder, got great speed. He's probably the best person to bunt on the team. If he can start hitting for contact, then he should easily be a starter. But right now, until he proves that he can hit for contact on a regular basis, Mullins is probably going to be that fourth outfielder rotating in. But he just does so many things well outside of hitting at the plate that you got to keep him on roster. With all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. And if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to see my takes on spring training games as they happen, follow me on Twitter. There'll be a link in the description. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a fantastic day.